What's going on, everybody? I'm Just That Officer, and welcome back to the channel. Sorry I missed you guys last week. I'm trying to get a video out every week, but I just started school and I'm taking online classes with school and work. It's a little bit crazy, so bear with me. But recently I received a message on my Instagram from one of my followers who's out in Norway. He's an officer out in Norway, and his name is Arnie, I believe. That's at least his Instagram name. And he sent me this message. He said, "Hi, what about your video on your thoughts about single officer patrols versus two-man patrols? I see a majority of departments in the US go with single officer patrols, and I'm curious why. What's the department's arguments and thoughts behind that? Here in Norway, we always ride two officers. It's only occasionally that we work alone, and it's considered a safety issue by many to do so. How do you feel about riding alone? And is it density of officers so that there's always backup close if needed? Any bad or good experience you feel like sharing? Keep up the good work and stay safe. Thank you. I will, and you do as well, sir." So thank you so much for the questions. I really appreciate it. I think this will make a good video for a lot of people out there who might be interested in this question. So we're gonna make it one. First of all, I just wanna say how cool it is that my videos are reaching you in Norway. That's pretty cool. If you guys here in the US don't know where Norway is, it's right here next to Sweden. Yeah, it's pretty far away, and it's pretty cool that my videos are reaching over there, and I really appreciate the support from all you guys. So why not two-man units, right? Why don't we do that? Here in the US, most agencies don't do two-man units. There's very few that do it, and the most popular is LAPD, of course, and the state of New York, right? New York City. I shouldn't say the state of New York, I should say just New York City itself. The state troopers and all that stuff ride solo. So what's the reasoning behind that? Well, there's a couple reasons, right? Most departments just don't have the manpower. They don't have the manpower to man two vehicles and have the road covered all the time. And if they do have the manpower, they can't divide it up into two-man units because they won't have enough patrol vehicles to cover all the zones. All right, so with us here in the US, most departments are broken up into zones or beats of some sort. Basically, officers are designated to that certain area so they can respond to that area. If there's calls there, they'll have to take the reports in that area and things like that. Some agencies assign permanently to those zones. You need to stay in that zone the entire shift. Some agencies like ours will let you float around. So although you're assigned to a beat, you can float around to different areas because we're a little bit of a smaller agency. So with that being said, the biggest reason is cost. Most agencies in the US can't afford to have two-man units. It costs 80% more to man two-man patrol cars. There's an argument that says, so like, okay, well, we're using less gas, less vehicle repairs and maintenance and so forth. Yes, but that usually doesn't add up to the amount it costs to pay for an officer's year salary. So it just doesn't work that way. We also need to think about all the training that these officers are gonna have to go through. That costs money, and especially if they want to go to additional training, that costs more money. So it costs a lot more to have an additional officers. That's one of the biggest reasons why. So like LAPD has two-man units, right? Well, think about LAPD, man. That's California. That's a huge city. There's a lot of money coming through there, so they can afford to do that. It also goes back to their history. In the 1950s, they started doing two-man units to combat the corruption that was in the department. The thought process was that having two-man units would help deter corruption with certain officers. So they would bounce off each other and keep the other officers from doing bad things. And lo and behold, I believe it worked. And they've been sticking to that tradition to this date. So they continue to do two-man units. New York, huge city, lots of income there. There's a lot of tax money coming through there. So they can afford to have two-man units. It's also a really big city and they need to cover it. Now with some smaller agencies, sometimes they can combat certain areas. So that can be an issue of concern, right? So certain areas are becoming really bad, but you don't need two-man units in all of the jurisdiction. Sometimes they'll temporarily have two-man units to combat a problem area till it calms down. With us, sometimes if we're having problems in a certain area, we'll do special details. So basically, officers come in on their days off. They'll get in two-man vehicles, sometimes unmarked vehicles, so that we can combat the crime in that area. specifically unmarked because they don't know we're actually sitting there watching certain areas. Say we got people breaking in the cars, things like that. And those occasions we'll do 2-man units just to help combat the area. And plus we don't have enough cars, undercover cars, to cover a single man unit in all those cars. So those are actually really fun. You feel safer, of course, because you got your backup right there with you, and you're just proactive. You're being proactive. You're bouncing off each other. You're motivating each other. I think that's one of the great things that can come out of 2-man patrol units, is that if you get a really good partner, they either become your best friend or you guys work really well together. I think that that helps deter a lot more crime and a lot more enforcement because you're pushing each other to be better. But then there's the off chance that you're both kind of lazy people and you don't really bounce off each other and you do the bare minimum between you. That's going to be on your department how they handle that. If they don't care, they don't care. But it runs both ways. Now, do I like single man or 2-man patrol? Well, I can't offer up 2-man patrol too much besides this every now and then special assignments or details that we do with 2-man. And I can say that if I'm riding with somebody that's a good friend of mine who I enjoy being around and who's proactive, then I'm all about it. I'm all about 2-man units. Now there's some downfalls with 2-man units. For most part, you don't really get your own car. Most times if you're gonna have 2-man units like the LAPD, they have their own cars there. You go to work in your personal car and you get into a patrol car together. So basically you have to bring your own bag of your own stuff in it every day, put it in the trunk of the patrol car or wherever, and take that car out for the day. Now that's not necessarily a terrible thing, but with the benefit of having your own vehicle, at least with most departments, not all departments let you take your vehicle home, but with me, I get to take my vehicle home. So that is a huge plus for me. I don't have to use my own gas. I always have access to my vehicle, so it's really handy. Another thing with that is that my vehicle is my office, right? So I have it set up how I like it. So it's really beneficial to me. And I have everything I need right in the side seat. I don't have to go to the back of the car and get it all the time. Everything's right there. The laptop's right there. It doesn't have to be moved in an awkward position to fit somebody in the car. So there's a lot of benefits to being a single man unit. But of course, the biggest of all is going to be that safety. You're not always going to have your backup there, which would be a huge bonus, and definitely make officers feel a lot safer. Obviously, it can most of the time help with any kind of ambush or anything like that. If a person sees 2 people in a patrol car, there's a less chance that they're going to try to attack you. Now, that's not always going to be 100%, as we saw in New York. I unfortunately can't remember the officers' names, but 2 of them were killed in their patrol cars after an ambush. Guy ran up to the passenger side door and opened fire on them. So it was a very unfortunate event, and just shows that 2-man patrol isn't always perfect. But of course, having 2 sets of eyes is always better than 1. And having your backup there with you all the time is always going to be the best when it comes to officer safety. There's a lot of agencies out here where the officer can be way out on the other side of town or the other side of the county or whatever, and they're by themselves for a long time before backup gets there. Now with us, we're fortunate enough to where our backup is always close by. Most cities, the backup is pretty close by. Some counties though, you can be on the whole other side of the county on a call and something go down and your backup could be pretty far away. Now, that being said, agencies assist each other and they can call the city or something like that, whoever's closest, and try to get more units there faster as well. But it's still never going to be as good as having that second officer with you in the car all the time. So there's pros and cons to all of it. But the biggest thing comes down to it, guys, is just going to be the money. Yeah, it's just not going to be affordable, and I don't see it being a nationwide thing for a very long time, if ever. It's just not going to be that way, especially these days. In the US at least, there's not a whole lot of people who are wanting to sign up for this job with everything going on in the world. I mean, who can blame them, right? I mean, there's a lot of hate towards police officers these days, but there's also a lot of love, and I really appreciate all the people who show the love. Just those people that randomly say thank you during the day and things like that. You may not think it means much, but it does. It helps, especially the kids, man. When you see the kids that appreciate you, there's a few out there that don't, and it's kind of sad. But it's really nice to see that. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for you today. I really hope I answered all those questions for you, Arnie, and anybody else out there that was curious about this. I really appreciate all you guys. If you're still here, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.